People say grief brings people together. But no one talks about how it can pull hearts into places they were never meant to go. After my husband died, I was shattered. But in that darkness, someone stood beside me. Someone who had known my husband longer than I had. His best friend. The man who knew him deeply. And somehow came to know me even deeper. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about loneliness, forbidden comfort, and the wild, confusing mess of grief. My name is Lauren. I was 38 when I lost my husband Daniel in a car accident. One second I was texting him to pick up milk. The next I was standing in a hospital hallway, staring at a doctor with empty eyes and blood on his gloves. The silence that followed was unbearable. Our home turned into a mausoleum. His scent on the pillows. His coffee mug still in the sink. The shoes he never picked up from the hallway. The neighbors came with casseroles. My sister stayed for a week. But then the world moved on. And I stayed stuck. Even my tears felt too exhausted to fall. Jake had been Daniel's best friend since college. He was the one who convinced Daniel to ask me out after a party. He was the best man at our wedding. He even helped us move into our first apartment. Jake wasn't just Daniel's friend. He was family. When Daniel died, Jake became the only constant in a world full of change. He mowed the lawn, took out the trash, paid the bills I kept forgetting. And when he sat beside me on the couch, he didn't try to fix me. He just listened. Sometimes that's all a grieving widow needs. Grief does strange things. You crave connection, touch, breath, anything that reminds you you're still alive. One night I couldn't sleep. I called Jake. I can't breathe in this house anymore, I said. He came over in 20 minutes. No questions. We sat on the floor of my bedroom, backs against the bed. He handed me a glass of water and I realized he was shaking. You're not okay either, are you? I asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. We were two broken halves in a world that had moved on. He helped me up and brushed hair from my face. His hand lingered a second too long. For the first time I noticed his jawline. The softness in his eyes. The care in his voice. And for a terrifying, flickering moment, I wanted him to hold me. I wanted anyone to hold me. I leaned in slightly, testing the air. But he pulled away. You're vulnerable, he said, barely above a whisper. He was right. And I hated that he was. But deep down, something in me already knew that night was a turning point. After that night, we didn't talk about what almost happened. But the energy changed. He stopped looking at me too long. I started wearing makeup again when I knew he was coming. He brought flowers once. Daniel would want me to take care of you, he said. But I wasn't sure if it was Daniel's memory he was honoring, or a desire he was trying to bury. I caught myself staring at him when he reached for the wine glass. When he laughed. When he bent over to pick something off the floor. Desire had a way of seeping through the cracks of grief. And mine was getting harder to ignore. 3 months after the funeral, I broke down. I found Daniel's old hoodie in the laundry. I collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Jake was there in minutes. He wrapped me in his arms. Rocked me like a child. And when I looked up, my tears wetting his shirt, I whispered, "Don't leave." This time he didn't pull away. This time he kissed me. And I let him. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't angry. It was slow. Intentional. Like two people crossing a line they both knew would change everything. And it did. We didn't speak. We didn't ask if it was right. We just let it happen. His hands were careful, almost reverent. He knew I might break. But in his touch I found life. I moaned his name in the dark. A name that wasn't my husband's. And when I came undone beneath him, I cried. Because it felt like betrayal. And also like rebirth. And I wasn't sure which scared me more. I woke up to the sun cutting through the blinds. Jake lay beside me, his chest rising and falling slowly. I should have felt guilt. Instead I felt peace. He stirred. Looked at me. Touched my cheek. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm not," I replied. And I wasn't. Not in that moment. Not after all the emptiness. For the first time in months, I felt human again. We didn't talk about it for days. But the silence was different now. Heavy, tense, electric. When we finally did speak, it was awkward. Careful, but honest. I don't want to replace him, Jake said. You can't, I replied. But you can hold me while I remember him. He nodded. And that night he held me again. No touching. No words. Just presence. Sometimes that was more intimate than anything else. For weeks we danced in the shadows, laughing over dinner, crying into each other's arms. We made love in silence. We mourned in whispers. He knew my body in a way Daniel never did. He touched the places grief had frozen, and somehow it healed me. But still, every now and then guilt crawled in. Was I betraying my husband's memory, or honoring it by learning to live again? One night I asked him, "Did you ever love me before Daniel died?" He hesitated, then said softly, "I loved you enough to never let myself think about it." And that was the most honest thing anyone had ever said to me. And the most heartbreaking. We kept it secret. The world wouldn't understand. Maybe they never will. People want grief to look a certain way. They want widows to wear black, cry in corners, and stay alone. But I was done performing. Jake wasn't my husband's replacement. He was the man who found me in the wreckage and loved me back to life. And I wasn't ashamed of that anymore. On the anniversary of Daniel's death, I visited his grave. I laid flowers, cried, whispered the truth. I loved you. I still do. But I'm learning to live again. Jake stood behind me, quiet, respectful. When I turned to him, I saw not just Daniel's friend, but the man who knew how to touch my grief and still love what remained. That was a gift. A forbidden one, but a gift nonetheless. People talk about forbidden love like it's fire and destruction. But sometimes it's healing. Sometimes it's two broken souls holding each other upright. I still miss Daniel, but I no longer feel dead inside. Jake didn't steal me from my husband. He met me where Daniel left me, and chose to stay. That's love. Ours is not a love story you read in fairy tales. It's messy, complicated, full of guilt and grace. But it's real, and it saved me. So if you ever find yourself judging a woman for loving again too soon, remember, you don't know her nights, her tears, her hunger to feel something other than pain. Sometimes the most unexpected love is the only kind that keeps you breathing. If this story touched you, stirred you, or made you rethink what love looks like in the aftermath of loss, share it. Comment below your thoughts. Tell us if you've ever loved someone the world told you not to. And if you believe in real, raw, imperfect stories that reflect the messiness of the human heart, subscribe to the channel. Your truth matters. Your healing matters. Your voice belongs here. For listening.